Good evening. Today is April 13th, and we had yet another up day in the markets. We now have 13 instances when SPI ETF, SPY ETF, closed higher than it's opened. It's the highest ever since the inception in 1993. S&P 500 futures tested 4,100 today overnight before they open and traded a few points above 4,100, but it was quickly bought and the S&P ran 40 points since then. It happened on the news that J&J vaccine will be halted temporarily until they figure out the blood clotting issues that they're allegedly having. And well, Trump, of course, had to chime in on the issue. He thinks that FDA is playing favorites with Pfizer. The way he put it, FDA's love for Pfizer is clouding their judgment. But so now Pfizer said they're going to produce a lot more vaccine than they promised to compensate for the J&J vaccine. So it's vaccine wars now. Who can sell more? And so anyway, we made another new highs today, 41.39, and closed at a new high as well. The Russell 2000 underperformed yet again. It was down a couple of points, while NASDAQ was up 1.25% and finally made new highs as well. 13,994 on the futures or 14,002 on the index. A nice round number of 14,000 is accomplished on NASDAQ. And even bonds managed to have a nice up day. And Bitcoin, of course, also finally established itself above 60,000 and trading around 63 now, as Coinbase is going public tomorrow. And lots of woke news, but the notable highlight, of course, the CNN technical director was caught on hidden camera saying, "Look what we did. CNN got Trump out." And she said that she 100% sure that it's because of the CNN coverage, Trump is no longer president. And she said that she has joined CNN specifically with the goal to remove Trump from presidency. And also CNN personnel said that now they're running stories about Matt Gaetz from Florida, senator, because he is like this Republican and he is a problem for the Democratic Party. So we, the CNN, are going to keep running the stories to keep hurting him. So, I mean, I don't know how much news we need to hear to finally validate Trump's calling them fake news. It's obvious at this point that CNN is nothing but unbiased. And here's another example. Now, Biden said that they're withdrawing troops from Afghanistan, which is, I think, is a great thing, 20 years finally after we went in. And of course, all the news outlets are calling it great news. But when Trump proposed the same thing about half a year ago or a year ago, that was terrible news. So it's not who proposes an idea, or rather it's about who proposes an idea. It's not about an idea itself. And that certainly is a terrible way to run the country. Anyway, Victor, what do you make of today? Are we having more new highs tomorrow?
Yes. Today was a very bullish day. We have, it's true, we have 13 open to closes up in a row, which is has never happened before. And we have 10 up close to close days. That's happened 3 times in the past since 2011. And each time it's been up as of the close, up 1% or so, a few days in the future, and up 0.5%. Because 3 times you can't make any statistical points. It's not enough variability to your estimates to have any statistical significance or any improbability to them. And I agree with you, this was as progressive a day as could be. But to me, the most progressive thing was the problem in Minneapolis. The policewoman, very bad picture, made a big mistake, and it created rioting, or as all the media put in it, I would augment what you said. It's not just CNN, but it's every one of the major television stations and cable stations, except for Fox. They've all told their reporters never to use the word riot. There've been a lot of policemen killed. I wish my father were here too, was a policeman. Wish he was here to opine on this. We should have Bill McCarthy talk about it, but a lot more policemen killed. That is a graphic picture. I mean, Bill McCarthy said a few months ago, he says the problem is that when someone is arrested, they're fighting back now. And in almost each case, there has been some fighting back, and it must make the police very nervous. I mean, so many of them there have been 100 killed so far this year in making arrests, and it makes them very nervous when someone pulls a gun on them. But anyway, that gives all the, it's not only the media stations, but it's professional baseball. It's the educational institutions. It's the unions. You know, it's amazing how many one is fighting, and everything is very good for the market. There's a very nice weak close, which is particularly bullish. How can you talk with certainty after 10 up days in a row? But still, the weather gauge is very positive. We've broken through round number, and after round number, that's very bullish. Even Dr. Fauci was in the news again, insisting that further lockdowns, panics were appropriate. But you know, there's always been something something negative about something. People talk about how bad things are, and there's something from 1607 in the greatest, what most people think, or what the surveys of great savants say is the greatest novel ever written, Don Quixote, 1607. Look what he was, even in 1607, he was talking about the good old days. Alexa, read Don Quixote.
The priest asked the niece for the keys to the room that contained the books responsible for the harm that had been done, and she gladly gave them to him. All of them.
Alexa, Read chapter 11.
regarding what befell Don Quixote with some goatherds. He
Look,
was welcomed cheerfully by the goatherds, and Sancho, having done his best to tend to Rocinante and his donkey, followed the aroma coming from certain pieces of dried goat meat that were bubbling over the fire in a pot. And though he wished at that very moment to test if they were ready to be transferred from the pot to his stomach, he did not, because the goatherds removed them from the fire, spread some sheepskins on the ground, quickly prepared their rustic table, and with displays of goodwill invited them both to share what they had. The 6 of them, which was the number in their flock, sat down around the skins, having first with artless ceremony asked Don Quixote to sit on a small wooden trough that they turned upside down and set out for him. Don Quixote sat down, and Sancho remained standing to serve him and fill his cup, which was made of horn. His master saw him standing and said, "So that you may see, Sancho, the virtue contained in knight-errantry, and how those who practice any portion of it always tend to be honored and esteemed in the world, I want you to sit here at my side and in the company of these good people, and be the same as I, who am your natural lord and master. Eat from my plate and drink where I drink, for one may say
skip 5 minutes.
justice stood on her own ground, and favor or interest did not dare disturb or offend her as they so often do now, defaming, confusing, and persecuting her. Arbitrary opinions formed outside the law had not yet found a place in the mind of the judge, for there was nothing to judge, and no one to be judged."
Alexis, back 2 minutes.
When the meat course was over, the goatherds spread out on the unshorn sheepskins a great quantity of dried acorns, along with half a cheese that was harder than mortar. In all this time, the horn was not idle, for it made the rounds so often, sometimes full, sometimes empty, like the bucket at a well, that one of the 2 wineskins in evidence was emptied with no difficulty. After Don Quixote had satisfied his stomach, he picked up a handful of acorns, and regarding them attentively, he began to speak these words.
Alexa, louder.
Age and fortunate the times called golden by the ancients, and not because gold, which in this our age of iron is so highly esteemed, could be found then with no effort, but because those who lived in that time did not know the 2 words thine and mine. In that blessed age, all things were owned in common, and no one, for his daily sustenance, needed to do more than lift his hand and pluck it from the sturdy oaks that so liberally invited him to share their sweet and flavorsome fruit. The clear fountains and rushing rivers offered delicious, transparent waters in magnificent abundance. In the fissures of rocks and the hollows of trees, diligent and clever bees established their colonies, freely offering to any hand the fertile harvest of their sweet labor. Noble cork trees, moved only by their own courtesy, shed the wide, light bark with which houses supported on rough posts were covered as a protection, but only against the rain that fell from heaven. In that time, all was peace, friendship, and harmony. The heavy curve of the plowshare had not yet dared to open or violate the merciful womb of our first mother, for she, without being forced, offered up everywhere across her broad and fertile bosom whatever would satisfy, sustain, and delight the children who then possessed her. In that time, simple and beautiful shepherdesses could wander from valley to valley and hill to hill, their hair hanging loose or in braids, wearing only the clothes needed to modestly cover that which modesty demands and has always demanded be covered. And their adornments were not those used now, enveloping the one who wears them in the purple dyes of Tyre, and silk martyrized in countless ways, but a few green burdock leaves and ivy vines entwined, and in these they perhaps looked as grand and elegant as our ladies of the court do now in the rare and strange designs which idle curiosity has taught them. In that time, amorous concepts were recited from the soul, simply and directly, in the same way and manner that the soul conceived them, without looking for artificial and devious words to enclose them. There was no fraud, deceit, or malice mixed in with honesty and truth. Justice stood on her own ground.
Okay, I think we
And
get,
favor,
he's talking
prejudice
about
did not
how,
dare
in
disturb or
1600, he's
offend
talking
her
about how it was much better 300 years beforehand.
confusing and
But now
persecuting
let's see what the negativism is these days and why the market is going up. Because it's conquered all the negativism. It's shown that when progressivism was in the retreat, the market's gone way up. When progressivism is getting stronger and stronger, when every day is becoming more woke, it's still getting stronger. Alexa, read The Rational Optimist.
Chapter 9. Turning Points. Pessimism after 1950. I have observed that not the man who hopes when others despair, but the man who despairs when others hope, is admired by a large class of persons as a sage. John Stuart Mill. A constant drumbeat of pessimism usually drowns out any triumphalist song of the kind I have vented in this book so far. If you say the world has been getting better, you may get away with being called naive and insensitive. If you say the world is going to go on getting better, you are considered embarrassingly mad. When the economist Julian Simon tried it in the 1990s, he was called everything from imbecile and Marxist to flat earther and criminal. Yet no significant error came to light in Simon's book. When Bjorn Lomborg tried it in the 2000s, he was temporarily convicted of scientific dishonesty by the Danish National Academy of Sciences, with no substantive examples given, nor an opportunity to defend himself on the basis of an error-strewn review in Scientific American. Yet, no significant error has come to light in Lomborg's book. Implicit confidence in the beneficence of progress, said Hayek, has come to be regarded as the sign of a shallow mind. If, on the other hand, you say catastrophe is imminent, you may expect a MacArthur Genius Award, or even the Nobel Peace Prize. The bookshops are groaning under ziggurats of pessimism. The airwaves are crammed with doom. In my own adult lifetime, I have listened to implacable predictions of growing poverty, coming famines, expanding deserts, imminent plagues, impending water wars, inevitable oil exhaustion, mineral shortages, falling sperm counts, thinning ozone, acidifying rain, nuclear winters, mad cow epidemics, Y2K computer bugs, killer bees, sex change fish, global warming, ocean acidification, and even asteroid impacts that would presently bring this happy interlude to a terrible end. I cannot recall a time when one or other of these scares was not solemnly espoused by sober, distinguished, and serious elites, and hysterically echoed by the media.
Okay, he then quotes about 10 of the most negative, scary things about the market, and I think they're always talking about what could happen to the market and how it could go down and why and what the problems are. And as you can see, the problem in 1609, the problems looked like the old days were much greater, much better. And right now, we've come from one scare, one panic after another, and as you say, even today, it was a mini panic when Johnson & Johnson reported that there were 5 blood clots out of 5 million, and yet another reason the market to halt, but we're still, we had a Baron Coleman day. Everything was up. There wasn't one thing that was down. Bonds were way up, and soybeans were up, and corn was up. Bitcoin was at a new high. Gold was up. Everything was up, and it was as you put up there, was a frog day. The frog only went up 10, 12 points. Didn't even have a good close. So we can expect to see 3,200 very shortly.
You mean 4,200?
4,200, that's right. I think it's relevant to hear all the negatives that are the backdrop to a market. That's the reason for the 50,000-fold a century
Well,
going up in the market. That's why it goes up so much.
while I agree with you, the reason people talk about the negative events because they remember more vividly the one negative event. Like, for example, Russia had a really great stock market returns for 25, 35, 45 years before the revolution in 1917. It was outperforming the US market. It was the sixth largest stock market in the world. It had lots of investments coming, and nobody thought, well, how could it not continue? Especially after one revolution failed before that. So nobody expected yet another revolution so soon. But it did happen, and the stock market was over. And
Dimson, Marsh and Stanton took account of all the markets that have the Cuban market and the German market and the Russian market. And when they come up with their drift of the market, it's not 50,000-fold a century, but when you take all those into account, it's 40,000. And there are always reasons to be negative, and you'll win the MacArthur Award or the Nobel Prize if you make the case for negativism. So be careful. Be careful for reasons to be negative, and the market is a magical, wonderful thing. It's able to conquer all sorts of problems, and even the as Ridley had said, and even the recession in baseball, even the gradual diminution in people watching baseball. By the way, do you know that your governor was captain of the Yale baseball team? He was a great baseball player.
no, I did not know that.
Yeah, he's a man of many hats. All right, that's all I have for today. After hearing from Cervantes and Ridley, anything I say would be anticlimactic, except that all the numbers, the quantitative stuff is very bullish. We'll go to 11 up days. In my based on the numbers. Thank you very much.